BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And just a quick reminder, every Monday is Zodiac Mondays. Wednesday is an Ask Me Anything. That's an AMA, so please drop your questions below for things that you would like discussed here on the show. And Friday is an Anything Goes. Any subject is fair game, mostly talking about true crime, serial killers, the Zodiac Killer, but any subject is welcome. All right, so please share some ideas in the comment section about what you would like to hear about on this channel, and let's get started. Okay, hello everyone. I'm going to play the episode in just a second, but before we begin, I wanted to share some news with you guys. The first is, a lot of you have been sending in emails to BlackBoxOnlineRadio@AOL.com. It's posted in the description box. Hey, bring it on. Keep it coming. You are all awesome. And really, at the email address, that's one of the best ways to get in contact with the show, because people can send me documents or people can send information that isn't super public and you don't have Mark Zuckerberg reading through it. So thank you to Michael Morford, whom I've been corresponding with extensively. First we started talking about the Donna Lass case, and then moved on to some other things about the Blue Rock Springs shooting. But then I had the chance to talk to Soren Korsgaard, who is the author of the book America's Jack the Ripper. So perhaps there will be a book discussion coming soon on that one, and of course talking about the Zodiac Killer. America's Jack the Ripper is of course the Zodiac, so please look out for that here on this channel. Now's a great time to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Tell your friends, tell your family, anyone who's into the true crime world, come on down to Black Box Online Radio. Why not? And lastly, it appears that there is somewhat of a dispute going on between Manny Grossman and the Stones Unturned podcast, which is hosted by Thomas Henry Horn. And I've also been in touch with Manny Grossman, and we've been sharing some things back and forth. And Manny has been accused of plagiarizing material from the Stones Unturned. Now, I've said this once before, and I just thought it required another response. I still haven't found any examples, any direct examples of Manny Grossman plagiarizing the Stones Unturned, which is hosted by Thomas Henry Horn. I am still on Manny's side with that one. I'm really not sure what to make of it, because I haven't heard every single word Manny Grossman has uttered on YouTube, but if there's anything that's happened, I'm not seeing it. So, I think we're just going to have to leave it at that. And Manny has shared a lot of things with me about his channel, and a very detailed response to all of that, but he asked me to keep a lot of it off the record. All I can say is, I don't think that he is a plagiarist. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. And if there's anything that you would like to hear about the Zodiac Killer for Zodiac Mondays, like this segment right now, please put your ideas in the comments section below. Any suggestions, recommended topics, recommended books in the future. A lot of people were talking about hearing a response to Mike Rodelli's book. Maybe in the near future that one could happen too. So share anything you'd like, and without further ado, let's play the episode. Okay, hello everybody. Today is Monday, another Zodiac Monday. Welcome to the show. This episode is going to happen a little bit differently than some in the past, because on Tuesdays I've been doing a segment called True Crime Talk Radio, and that happens in addition to Zodiac Mondays, the AMA, and the Anything Goes segment on Fridays. However, tomorrow is the anniversary of the passing of Polly Nichols, who was the first victim in the Jack the Ripper crime spree, in the canonical Ripper crimes, I should say. So there's going to be just a very short tribute and a day of resting in peace for Polly Nichols, so I won't be doing the True Crime Talk Radio segment, and instead I would just wanted to share some things on Zodiac Mondays. Going to also do this in the talk radio format, where many different things that are put together, and I think that those are some of the best episodes of Black Box Online Radio, because we can go through so many different subjects all at once. And we're going to begin with the Zodiac Killer, of course, and then go into some different directions. And it's going to be a lot like the AMA that happens on Wednesday, where I respond to your questions and comments. The reason why I added the True Crime Talk Radio segment on Tuesdays is the AMA is about responding to people in the audience, and the talk radio segment was about just responding to any pieces of media that I found out there that I was curious about or I had something to say about. And I should also say that I appeared on the Professor Dad channel this weekend, last weekend, whatever. I mean, English is a weird language. Last weekend, I appeared on the Professor Dad channel, and the episode was called Happy Birthday, Professor Dad. Yes, of course, it was a celebratory episode, but also we were talking about all kinds of things: the Zodiac Killer, the Son of Sam, the ultimate evil material from Maury Terry, as well as some other things just like the drug trade and a whole lot about some of the things I'll get into today. No, it was a good time. I appeared with Drew Beeson, Evan from Texas was on this time, NY Patriot, and of course the host Thomas Henry Horan. So I would invite all of you guys to visit that episode after the end of this one. Professor Dad. Happy birthday, Professor Dad, on the Professor Dad channel. All right. In addition to just listening, a great way to support Black Box Online Radio is by visiting Amazon.com. You can get a copy of the book Killer on a White Horse by me, Ned DeHaan. It's a novel, murder mystery. But also the Teespring page. Don't forget about that, because you can get some wonderful t-shirts, coffee mugs, merchandise. You get the idea, you know the drill. It's all in the description box. All right, let's talk about some of these substance for today's episode. On the weekends, I've been doing a debunking series where I share some ideas about Zodiac suspects whom I absolutely do not believe were the Zodiac Killer. Last weekend, not this weekend, but last weekend, got my words right now. Last weekend I did one on Xenophon Anthony, and because I put out the episode on Xenophon Anthony, his Zodiac suspect was somewhat of an unusual name. One of the videos that appeared right below it was from the channel Just a Sleuth. Now, a big proponent of the Xenophon Anthony theory and the Zodiac Killer is that, well, it comes from Kelly Marshall, and I don't know if this Just a Sleuth channel is Kelly Marshall's own personal channel, or maybe somebody else just uploaded a video on her behalf, but she's talking about some of her evidence. Xenophon Anthony becomes a Zodiac Killer suspect because he was seen in the vicinity of the murder of Paul Stine on October 11th of 1969. Paul Stine is the final confirmed victim of the Zodiac Killer, the taxi driver, and I'm just going to read to you the description that was shared in Kelly Marshall's video. When I solved the Zodiac Killer 340 cipher, it revealed the name. My name is Tony. Short for Anthony. The identity of the Zodiac Killer is Xenophon Anthony. And even though I went into this a lot on the debunking video, I just have to repeat that. If that's your solution to the 340 cipher, my name is Tony, Anthony is his last name, not his first name. I mean, that might be acceptable if it's somebody's first name, and then someone's like calling him Anthony Xenomorph in the comments section. Well, all right, I mean, like, I know you're just joking around and you're just having a laugh, but I don't want to sound disrespectful to Kelly Marshall, but her theory is laughable about this Xenophon Anthony connection. And I went into all of these reasons why on the debunking video, but it's just that she wrote it out there in plain English. She got the solution to the 340 cipher and thinks that it's evidence in favor of Xenophon Anthony being the Zodiac Killer. It's not. And also, who is to say that Kelly Marshall has found the solution to the 340 cipher? David Oranchak, Jarl Van Eyck, and Sam Blake proposed their solution, and the FBI signed off on that. The one that says that wasn't me on the TV, I'm not afraid of the gas chamber. The FBI signed off on that one, not Kelly Marshall's. But I do have something for both Kelly Marshall and David Oranchak. They're going to have to get much more familiar with me, because according to somebody in the comments section, there's going to be a lawsuit that is going to be filed against Kelly Marshall, David Oranchak, and me, Ned from Black Box Online Radio. And we're going to be sharing a courtroom at some point. Somebody claims that we stole her solution to the Z10 cipher. Someone's just writing this stuff in the comments section. And I don't mean to poke fun at someone who probably doesn't have the strongest mental faculties. However, I don't even know what the Z10 cipher is. Epic failure on my Zodiac knowledge, but at the same time, Alright, if this person wants to file a lawsuit against Kelly Marshall, David Orenchak, and me of all people, because I stole this thing that I don't know what it is, yeah, you have fun with that. You have fun paying the legal costs. I will gladly defend myself in court and try to spare me the trouble. But anyway, to move on to a different subject, I had originally been thinking about talking more about Robert Graysmith and some of the other books that he has written. Robert Graysmith is, of course, the most famous writer in the Zodiac world, perhaps. I don't think that's too controversial of a statement. He wrote the book Zodiac in 1986 and then went on to write Zodiac Unmasked. And I believe he has a new book out about the filming of the Zodiac movie, Shooting Zodiac or something like that. But I'm really not too interested in that one. I did one response to the murder of Myra Davis here on this channel. It was called The Murder of Myra Davis and the Story of Marley Renfro. And I talked a lot about Graysmith's material. The actress Janet Leigh appears in the early scenes in Psycho, and the story starts off talking a lot about her character. And she said one of the reasons why she wanted to do the film was that it was a character who doesn't make it all the way through the film. Yeah, spoiler, she is murdered in the very famous shower scene in Psycho, but she wanted to do it because her character would still be thought about for the remainder of the movie, for the entire duration of the movie, kind of living on in memory. I absolutely love the film Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock. I think it's a masterpiece. But when that shower scene happened, Janet Leigh had two body doubles. One of them did the scenes where she is clothed, and another one did the scenes where she was nude. And the nude body double was Marley Renfro. The clothed body double was Myra Davis. Myra Davis was murdered in 1988, and Robert Graysmith has a book talking about a lot about Marley Renfro, but also about some things in the true crime world. And I have an episode on that called The Murder of Myra Davis and the Story of Marley Renfro here on this channel. But recently, I started reading Robert Graysmith's book on the Unabomber, which talks about Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski is also a Zodiac killer suspect, and I'm not going to lie to you. That was the biggest reason why I wanted to read the book. How is this guy Graysmith, who wrote the most famous book on the Zodiac killer, going to approach Ted Kaczynski? And several chapters were posted online via the wonderful Google Books, so I decided to read this as much as I could about the Unabomber in Robert Graysmith's writings. Now, point number one. It seems that there is this type of sexual connection between the Unabomber and the Zodiac Killer. And Dr. Todd Grande even talked about this in his assessment of the Zodiac Killer, when he said he thought the Zodiac was someone who was a sexually motivated serial killer, even though he didn't touch the victims. He's not committing acts of sexual assault or rape or any physicality. I mean, with the exception of moving Paul Stein's body in the taxicab on October 11th of 69, the Zodiac really isn't moving the victims post-mortem. Not at Lake Herman Road, not at Blue Rock Springs. Maybe something happened at Lake Berryessa. Well, I mean, the victims definitely weren't dead by that point. Both the victims survived the Lake Berryessa stabbing on September 27th of 69, so that wouldn't even fall into that category. But Dr. Todd Grande still postulated that the Zodiac was sexually motivated, and I've interviewed Mark Hewitt a couple times. He is the author of the Hunted trilogy, who believes that Ted Kaczynski was the Zodiac killer. Douglas Oswell also has talked a lot about the similarities between the Zodiac killer and the Unabomber, and the big points that gets highlighted is just that there is this type of sexual connection but between the two of them, a very similar psychological feat where the crimes are sexually motivated. Even the Unabomber mailing in those bombs, there's this sexual motivation there, but he's not having this type of physical contact with the victims. And a big point in favor of that is Ted Kaczynski would assemble the bombs and then disassemble them, then put them back together. And Graysmith talks about this very clearly in his Unabomber book, Unabomber: A Desire to Kill by Robert Graysmith. And he's also just asking the question, Why is this guy putting in so much effort into something that's going to explode, that is going to be blown to smithereens? And it's just that he is using this as an outlet for his sexual frustrations. Now, with the writings of Robert Graysmith, you can get caught up in somewhat of a difficult way to understand them as a reader. I don't do traditional book reviews on this channel, but some of the big book review points that I would share with you guys about his Unabomber book is that it really blends together the concept of true crime and that of a novel, because all the writings of Robert Graysmith are like that, whether it's the Zodiac book or Zodiac Unmasked or the Unabomber book. And if you read the reviews of his other books, The Girl in Alfred Hitchcock's Shower, or he also has a book on the Anthrax Killer, he has numerous publications. Every single time Graysmith writes a book, people are complaining about how he is putting ideas together that don't belong together. And it's quite difficult to do this in the Unabomber book, where it's quite difficult to follow along as a reader. Well, what really is something that's coming from Graysmith's imagination, and what is something that is coming from the actual facts of the case? Now, about that, I would I would even just get reminded of Truman Capote and In Cold Blood. I was watching that film Capote with Philip Seymour Hoffman years ago when he played Truman Capote and won the Oscar. And he said that with his book In Cold Blood, I mean, it's just in the movie, that he wanted to create something, the non-fiction novel. And that's what the writings of Robert Graysmith really turn into, whether it's about the Zodiac Killer or the Unabomber. It's like a non-fiction novel. But the problem is, though, he's citing all of these things, and he's not saying where he's getting the source information. I'm like, well, if this is a true crime book, where is this info coming from? I mean, there are no citations in this Unabomber book about like how he knows this fact about this person, and it's narrated the way that a novel is. Like he's even referring to Ted Kaczynski as the professor, and like the professor had this conversation with this student, and then he looked sad, and he looked to the sky, and he had all of these emotions. Well, firstly, how does Graysmith know how to recreate anything to do with that sort when he isn't providing the sources? Maybe if he had some type of journal from a student who said they had this conversation with Ted Kaczynski, or maybe if he had interviewed Kaczynski himself and he shared those feelings with him. But how does Graysmith know this stuff? We aren't allowed to know. But when it comes to his writings in the Zodiac Killer world, one point that I think Graysmith absolutely went too far when it came to fudging the facts was in his first book, Zodiac, when he talked about how the Lake Herman Road murders were committed by a stocky man. Nope. There are no definitive witness sightings after the Lake Herman Road murders. On December 20th of 1968, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were murdered at a parking lot on Lake Herman Road. Lake Herman Road is a shortcut in between Vallejo and Benicia, California. And why were David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen in that parking lot? We still do not know to this day. Maybe it was a genuine case of lovers' lane activity. Maybe they went there to talk to somebody, or it was just a popular teenage hangout. All of those things could even fall into a category. It could be somewhere in the middle of all that. But they're murdered by somebody, yet there are no definitive witness sightings of the shooter. So when I was reading that, I was like, how does Robert Graysmith know that a stocky man committed that crime? And I can tell you exactly what the source material of that is. He was trying to set the stage for Arthur Lee Allen to be the Zodiac Killer, because that's the suspect that he's going to zone in on. While it is true that Arthur Lee Allen was also looked at by the police, and Robert Graysmith wasn't the only person in the world thinking that Lee Allen was the Zodiac Killer. I mean, the police were using him as their prime suspect, and I do have to give credit to Tom Voigt for that when he was the one who pointed out, yeah, okay, people are going to say that Graysmith lied in his book, Zodiac from 1986, in the same way that I say, like, he's blending together ideas that don't belong, splicing ideas that shouldn't be there, or trying to present the true crime facts as a novel, but then adding in things from his own imagination, and we can't really differentiate that as the reader unless we have the case files and the source documents to compare them. But what Tom Voigt said was, Graysmith was not the person writing the search warrants for Arthur Lee Allen, and Graysmith can't control the police forces, even if he did more things at the San Francisco Chronicle than what people are commonly expecting that he did. He's always referred to as a cartoonist. All right, I can accept that he was a production assistant. I can accept that he was someone who worked with the cameras and would have taken photos of documents and so on. But that still doesn't quite mean that he would have had any control over the police departments. I absolutely accept that. So I think we need to be very cautious around Robert Graysmith when he is sharing anything in his books. Oh, but one thing I did say on the Professor Dad channel, I hope you guys will listen to that episode, is that I wrote to Robert Graysmith and I asked him for a response to the book The Great Zodiac Killer Hoax of 1986. And of course there's also The Myth of the Zodiac Killer by Thomas Henry Warren, which assembles all of Warren's writings together, but specifically The Great Zodiac Killer Hoax of 1986. I wrote to Graysmith and I asked him if he would provide a response to that, and he did not for some reason. But, you'd think that guy has nothing better to do than just talk to me, right? Ned from BlackBoxOnlineRadio. That'd be the best use of his time possible. I'm being halfway sarcastic about that, but also being halfway serious. I think that would be absolutely excellent if Graysmith would respond to me. And I wrote to him because The Great Zodiac Killer Hoax of 1986 is a book that tries to debunk Robert Graysmith. It tries to show where Graysmith lied in his book, Zodiac from 1986. And also on that Professor Dead episode, Thomas Warren was telling the story of how Mike Rodelli took the case to the court in the 1990s, and he had learned that there had been copies of all the FBI police files in the Zodiac Killer mystery, and those would end up being the case files that were uploaded to ZodiacKiller.com and ZodiacKillerFacts.com. So Graysmith was counting on the fact that those files would never have been made available to the general public. And someone was even writing that on a forum. I don't remember who it was, or else I would cite them as a source, but they provided that as the explanation about why Graysmith had all of these inconsistencies in Zodiac. Or it's that idea of splicing the ideas together. He can write half a sentence that is true and half a sentence that is false. And I always zone in on this mundane example because it's the one that exists in my memory the most clearly, about how on the night Darlene Ferrin was murdered, Graysmith said that there was an argument that took place at either Terry's or Mr. Ed's diner. I think it's actually Mr. Ed's. Like, there's an argument that took place in the parking lot at 10:30 p.m. with Darlene Ferrin and some unidentified male. Now, if you can even read this in Zodiac, Just the Facts, the ones that Tom Voigt assembled. That argument did not occur at 10:30 p.m. on July 4th, 1969. It occurred in the morning of July 4th, 1969, and Darlene Ferrin wasn't even present. Do you see that? Half a sentence is true and half a sentence is false, splicing ideas together that don't belong together. So we need to be very, very cautious around this guy, because it seems like he's doing it in all of his writings, whether it's the Unabomber book, The Girl in Alfred Hitchcock's Shower, or any of the other publications out there. He has one called The Laughing Gorilla, which I have no desire to read. Okay, it did just make me giggle for a second, so maybe it caught my attention. I'll give you that, Bob. But now I would like to do a very big segue into another story, and it starts with a question from last week's AMA. By the way, this week's AMA is going to be all about Jack the Ripper, so please throw your Ripper questions down in the comments section below. That's going to come out on Wednesday. But last week I did a Zodiac Killer AMA, and somebody asked me the question, do you think the Zodiac Killer mystery will ever be solved? And I said yes. Perhaps within the next 5 to 10 years we will have answers to very large questions. And one of the reasons why I said that was I had recently been talking about the murder of Valentine Sally, who has since been identified as Carolyn Eaton, that occurred in 1982. And I was talking about learning about Jane Doe and John Doe cases, about when people are murdered and they remain unidentified for very long periods of time. And one example of that is the story of Daisy Jane Doe, and she was one of the first unidentified victims that I learned about watching America's Most Wanted as a kid. And her name is Jeanette Coleman, and unidentified.org gives this introduction about her. Jeanette Ellen Coleman was previously known as Daisy Doe or Daisy Jane Doe. She was a homicide victim found in 1988. The victim was identified on March 13, 2015, after her fingerprints were matched to her hands that were stored by the coroner. Firstly, that's a little bit grim and morbid, and it always reminds us that there is this, well, just that, a grim and morbid side of medical science. However, they're making all kinds of breakthroughs in the worlds of forensics. And it's not only fingerprint identifications and matching some types of records and so on. It was also DNA, because it was DNA that was used to identify Carolyn Eaton, so she is no longer referred to as Valentine Sally. But with the murder of Jeanette Coleman, this is a very, very twisted story, because I would like to read this article here from TulsaWorld.com, a publication that I've never used before, but I always like finding new sources, and this was written in 2015 by Corey Jones, just citing the source. A cold case homicide victim dubbed Daisy Doe, also known as Daisy Jane Doe, was found tied to a concrete block in the Grand Neosho River below the Fort Gibson Dam nearly 3 decades ago, and she was identified by forensic investigators after they realized her hands were preserved in cold storage. Does that just sound like... Does that just give you the chills? Oh my gosh. Cherokee County Undersheriff Jason Cheneau spoke with the Tulsa World on Friday regarding Daisy Jane Doe's strange story, one that involves connections by association to multiple homicides. And this is the stuff where it gets really weird, because Daisy Jane Doe was actually married to a serial killer, and the serial killer was named Robert Coleman, and he was her husband. But the problem is, though, he had a very solid alibi for the time of the murder. He was behind bars at the time. There's no possible way that he committed the crime because, well, he simply was in jail. So then the authorities began to believe that, okay, this guy is in jail for murdering somebody else. Maybe he had somebody arrange the killing of Daisy Jane Doe, who has since been identified as Jeanette Coleman. And the reason why they call her Daisy Doe or Daisy Jane Doe is because of a daisy tattoo that she had on her body. This is done very frequently in cases, especially in the Long Island serial killer mystery. I've talked about Peaches Jane Doe and Cherries Jane Doe. Just because of that, they had tattoos of a peach and of cherries, respectively. Now, I would like to go over to an article from KTUL News. This is News Channel 8 in Tulsa, Cherokee County, Oklahoma. KTUL News reports. An indictment was filed on Friday morning with the Cherokee County in the 29-year-old murder case of Jeanette Coleman. An Oklahoma multi-county grand jury on Thursday formally charged James Vogel with first-degree murder, engaging a pattern of criminal offenses and perjury. The victim was Jeanette Coleman, known as Daisy Jane Doe for more than 2 decades, and she was positively identified in 2015 by the Oklahoma State Medical Examiner. According to the documents, Vogel caused Coleman's death between January 1st and May 1st of 1988, but the details weren't released to the public. According to the DA's office, Vogel was taken into custody by the U.S. Marshals on Friday, this is back in 2015, and the investigation into Coleman's murder is ongoing and still in progress. This is one of the reasons why I think the Zodiac Killer mystery will be solved. This was an unsolved case that they talked about on America's Most Wanted when I was a kid. Who was Daisy Jane Doe? They had no idea. They had no leads. Well, forensic information led to her identity. Then they were able to use the new discoveries to make an arrest in the case. Absolutely, I think the Zodiac Killer mystery will be solved within our lifetimes. Definitely there will be big discoveries in the next 5 to 10 years. Forensic science is moving at an astronomical rate. And now to talk about something in the true crime world that is completely different, and this would be some things that I would put into a normal AMA, but I'm really trying to do the AMAs, that's the Ask Me Anything segments on Wednesdays, as a single subject. Like if it's going to be an AMA, it's going to talk only about the Zodiac Killer, or only about Jack the Ripper. So this is talking about the Beavis and Butt-Head fire incident, and Planet X Filmworks left an excellent comment on last week's True Crime Talk Radio saying, first, that he remembers the Beavis and Butt-Head fire incident as a kid, and the second is that the Oak Island treasure mystery is his favorite treasure hunt. I mean, Planet X Filmworks thank you for tuning in, because I think Oak Island is an absolutely fascinating case, which I hope to talk about later in the future, is the story of the money pit. Like, there's this pit on Oak Island, and if you just dig deep enough, you will encounter this very important something. I mean, it might not be like gold and silver and jewels. It might just be actual clues to the writings of William Shakespeare talking about how Francis Bacon was behind them. There's something there. But if you dig deeper, then these traps, more or less, if you call them that, they break down, and then water pours in, so then it destroys all the digging that you've done. It's a very bizarre mystery, and I hope to do a full episode on Oak Island at some point in the future. And the second thing, remembering the Beavis and Butt-Head fire incident, well, there are a couple of things in the world that are connected to Beavis and Butt-Head, and I would like to go to this LA Times article from 1993 that talked about a time when Beavis and Butt-Head made it to the Senate chambers. And let's just have a read here. Washington, D.C. As if the popular MTV series Beavis and Butt-Head had not been maligned enough recently, a U.S. Senator on Wednesday mangled the show's name. Senator Ernest Hollings, who is also known as Fritz Hollings, as I'll be referring to him as, chairman of the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, was arguing that television broadcasters had to be pressured to curb violent or otherwise offensive shows when he said, "What is that show we've got? What is it? Buff Coat and Beaver, something else. I haven't seen it. I don't watch it, but whatever it is, it was on at 7 o'clock. Buff Coat, and they put it at 10:30 now, I think. The MTV cartoon series has come under criticism recently after charges that Beavis and Butt-Head's habit of lighting fires caused a 5-year-old fan to set a fire that killed his 2-year-old sister. And the 5-year-old boy in question was named Austin Messner, and the 2-year-old girl was named Jessica Matthews. And I have an episode about this called The Beavis and Butt-Head Fire Incident, and I was talking about it on last week's True Crime Talk Radio for August 24th. If you'd like to hear more about those incidents, excuse me. But when it comes to Fritz Hollings and his claims, what is that show, Buff Coat and Beaver? I haven't seen it. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it was on at 7 o'clock, and now they put it at 10:30, and this is why that type of thinking will never work. Okay, you don't know what the show is. You don't know the name of it. You don't know what time it's on. You've never seen it. Oh yeah, but it's bad. This is why people like Fritz Hollings will never get through to younger generations. And I know this article is from 1993, but nothing has changed. I mean, people complain about The Simpsons, and people complained about Family Guy, and people complained about all sorts of things on television. South Park had its moments when people were going after them, and they're saying, oh, television's bad, and we need to get rid of cartoon shows that are showing bad things. Oh yeah, well, what's the name of it? I don't know. Buff Coat and Beaver or something like that. And it was actually a running gag on the show. Like, they frequently, not frequently, but they sometimes would refer to the two of them as Buff Coat and Beaver, or Beavis and Buff Coat. It had a few appearances. It's inappropriate type of thinking. I get that they're saying things on the behalf of constituents sometimes. You don't even know the name of the show. You don't even know what time it's on. And you don't even know anything about it because you haven't seen it. Oh, yeah, but it's bad. Ridiculous. But there was this show. There's some YouTube channel, actually, called Wicked Binge that did this thing with cartoon shows. They rank like the characters from good to evil, like who are the characters on a TV show who are filled with good intentions, and who are the most evil. I thought it was a really creative way of doing it. Wicked Binge. I wish I had thought of that idea. But they asked a question that would have been a great icebreaker, or like a borrowed question for the AMA, and it is about Beavis and Butt-Head. And if you haven't seen the show, like Senator Fritz Hollings in 1993, I'll try to make it very, very simple. In short, they're asking the question, is Beavis mentally ill? And I said out loud while I was watching that, I was just watching the episode on my phone, I said it out loud. I was like, yeah, he's a schizophrenic. And it's just that. They went on to say that they went on to explain all of that throughout their episode, Wicked Binge, Beavis and Butt-Head. They're saying, yeah, Beavis is most likely a schizophrenic. If you ever do watch this show, I had such a different experience with it as a kid, and then as a teenager, and then in my early 20s. And now that I'm in my 30s now, you notice things that are different. And it is that you have these two characters, Beavis and Butt-Head. When I first learned about them, I thought, all right, they're just two guys with silly names. And then as a teenager, I'm like, okay, they have silly names and then they're doing silly things. And as a young adult, I thought, oh wow, these guys are like best friends, but they they laugh at stuff they shouldn't laugh at. Like stuff like that. But now that I'm in my 30s, it's like, yeah, this one of them is definitely mentally ill. And the reason why I say that is quite different than what Wicked Binge said. They pointed out that Beavis can turn into an alter ego named Cornholio, and that's almost like a multiple personality thing. I wasn't quite thinking it was that, because instead, the character Beavis cannot seem to differentiate between abstractions in his own mind and reality. So, I mean, that is firstly a big warning sign for schizophrenia. And also, Beavis is someone who is prone to violent impulses that he chooses to act upon. And then there's even this one episode which shows Beavis eating off of a toilet seat, like he has French fries on a toilet seat, and then he puts ketchup on the side and he's using it as a plate. And it's just in the public bathroom at Burger World. And somebody wrote in the comments section just saying, I had no idea Beavis was this demented. And the show is fully aware of this. All of this is intentional. I don't think that it's some type of unintentional byproduct. Instead, it's like they're showing even throughout his development, his head slowly tilts more and more to the side. It's fully intentional that he is a demented and borderline incomprehensible individual, and showing the early signs of schizophrenia. And I think that some of the fans have really disputed this. They're trying to say that, oh yeah, he just has bad influences in his life, and I completely agree about that. But if somebody is dealing with schizophrenia, that is something that is affecting their neurochemistry. It's going to affect their genes. And on the show Waterloo Road, someone said, I'm a schizophrenic. It was always in me. It's just something brought it to the surface. So influence isn't the only factor that makes somebody a schizophrenic. Like someone's upbringing or the people in their life aren't going to just put schizophrenia into them. It is a neurological issue, neurochemical issue, and genetic issue that they have already. It's a pre-existing mental condition. That's what I wanted to say. And I know that that's not related to the Zodiac Killer, but on the True Crime Talk radio episodes, we can blend in together many subjects at once. The murder of Jeanette Coleman, though, I do think has somewhat connected because it's a big indicator that we will make very large advancements in the forensic science fields in the future. And thank you to everyone who listened to that stuff about Robert Graysmith, Ted Kaczynski, and if you want to hear more about the Zodiac Unabomber connection, I have an episode about Ted Kaczynski under that name, the Zodiac Unabomber connection, here on this channel. And one more time, you can visit the Professor Dad channel and hear me with Drew Beeson, Evan from Texas, New York Patriot, and Thomas Henry Horan. And there are going to be many things coming out this week. There'll be a tribute to Polly Nichols, the first victim of Jack the Ripper, and then the Ripper AMA on Wednesday. And there will be a regularly scheduled episode about the disappearance of Donna Lass. Thank you again for watching the Debunking series. And I know I sound harsh when I talk about Kelly Marshall. I just think she was wrong about everything. She puts in a lot of good effort. I just disagree with her on absolutely every aspect of, well, anything under the sun. Okay, so please put your comments down in the section below, especially if you have a question about Jack the Ripper. I would love to hear more from you guys. And feel free to visit the Teespring page, Amazon.com. And you can also write me at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com and on Instagram, BlackBoxNet88. See you over there for the bonus podcast. Until next time.